when it comes to FD, a lot of the feedback that I get is people don't like how it's judged. Can you share with us some of that feedback on like what are some of the challenges you would deal with from being judged in FD? Like what do they look at? Like
I think one of the biggest challenges with FD is not necessarily in the judging, but it's that they've gotten so technical almost to a fault to where there are certain calls that optically do not look right to the viewer. And they've done a much better job in recent times of explaining to the audience why they're making a call and maybe demonstrating it. But in the past, there's been many times where there would be a call that makes no sense with what you saw on the TV screen.
mm-hmm.
And with no explanation, it makes you think, why did they make that call?
Right.
Is there some sort of bias going on here? Is someone getting bribed? And it's interesting, comparing it to drift masters, sometimes they choose to get less technical, which may be at the fault of the driver, but it's at the whim of the spectators, because now the spectators are understanding and feel like the calls are in line with what they're seeing. Mm-hmm. But as a driver, imagine something happens that's totally the other guy's fault. If you're really technical, you might notice that. But if you're not, you might. So it's in judging, the best way to look at it, you're always going to be unhappy at some point. So it's like sometimes it's going to go in your favor and sometimes it's not.
Right. If FD were to ever call you like, hey, we want you to judge, would you ever take the judge
I
seat?
hate the idea of judging. I would never want to be a judge ever.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of work. You got to focus. I've got ADD, so there's no way. I couldn't even spot for her. I tried, and I wound up buying a car in Marketplace during a run.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm over here as his spotter for FD last season with notes, man. I can watch a car, and as it's doing the lap, boom, notes. I'm at the driver, next lap, boom. You want to reference what the last guy just did? Okay, I'll look for him, boom. This is how he enters. This is how he's a little weird into like outer two. I got all the notes, and that's what I get back from him as a spotter.
I was really good at watching her and my friends. But everyone else, I really struggled to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But like I've always been that way with sports. Like I never watched sports at all because I could not keep my attention span. Not football, baseball, not even FD. I wouldn't watch FD unless it was someone that I knew driving, because then I care. But if it's not someone that I know about driving, it's really hard to capture my attention.
So then what about skateboarding? Because I notice a lot of enthusiasts come from BMX, scootering, skateboarding. Even I skateboarded myself. And then now I transitioned into motorsports. It's something that we all end up doing. Who did you watch growing up, like for BMX and for skateboarding?
Yeah, there were definitely riders that I watched more so. And interestingly enough, it was always, there's some unique characteristic about the way that they rode, or maybe the bike that they had, or the way that the parts were edited. But it definitely did get to a point where, maybe it's when you do something so much, you almost become like numb to it. To where like in the early days, I remember being a kid and getting home and like watching just BMX videos all day long. But then when I had been riding for like 10 years, at that point, it was like, I wouldn't watch an edit unless it was one of my friends' videos.
Yeah, you got to find something to like re-inspire you.
Yeah.
Pretty much. What did you think about Bam Margera? Because I think Bam Margera was like a huge influence in car culture and like BMX and, not BMX and skateboarding. The purple Gallardo he had was like iconic. Like whenever I think of a Lambo, I think of his. Were you a fan of his? Like, did you like the Jackass stuff that he did and all that stuff?
I was never really like a big fan of Jackass, but I loved Viva La Bam, and I
Viva
feel like
La Bam was dope.
That was kind of like an early version of like, I don't want to say what YouTube has become, but like he definitely inspired, him and Rob Dyrdek both, right? Like they're kind of like yin and yang. Rob Dyrdek was a little bit more polished, a little more professional, and then Viva La Bam was a little bit more out there, right? But both of them showed that like, okay, I'm in this subculture industry where like really you can't make it that big as a skateboarder, right? But they paved their own way, and Viva La Bam with that show that Bam created and all these other avenues, and then Rob with all his brands and stuff. So like that was inspiring to me watching that.
Yeah, because they used to do the backyard DVDs, and then eventually that took off, got on MTV. Is that what inspired you to start doing the videos on YouTube? Like how did that come about for you?
I just started making YouTube videos because there's kids that skated in my I think it was middle school, and like they would put out like a skate video, and like everyone would talk about, oh, did you see so and so skate video? So like, oh, that's cool. I should do that with my bikes. So I got a little camcorder and we'd film ourselves doing like 180s in the street, and that's where I started.
And then at what moment did you know like this is taking off?
It's been slow and steady for so long. Like I don't think I don't think there was ever a moment that was like, oh my God, this like took off. Cause I remember in the early days of YouTube, I had like 5,000 views on a video, and that was crazy. But it was just like slowly over time.
Slowly over time.
Yeah. I rarely had a video that would just like pop off out of nowhere.
Well, what was that moment that clicked for you? Like, hey, I'm transitioning from doing this into motorsports.
I wouldn't say there was a moment, because it was something I was always like passionate about. You know, I'd use my success in BMX to get my first drift car, to get my first turbo car back in the day, which was a huge deal, but I never really documented any of it. But I had watched another creator by the name of Roman Atwood a long time ago. This was in the early days when no one was vlogging. And I was like, yo, I don't know why, but like there's this random dude in the middle of nowhere and I care about him and his family. What is this dude doing in his videos? So I was like, how can I,
That's a good point.
how can I put that into what I'm doing? And I started implementing more so of that vlog structure into my BMX videos. And what it allowed me to do was connect more with my audience as a person and less as a BMX rider, which allowed me to start filming more stuff like what I was doing with my cars, rather than being locked into that category that was becoming really tough, getting hurt, having to go push myself to do harder and harder and harder tricks. It gets very, very difficult when you're at a higher level to continue raising that level more and more and more.
Right. And then you get a lot of feedback from the audience, of course. And I'm sure like that's a challenge you still deal with to this day. Like not all the comments are always positive, or like someone always has an opinion on what you do. How did you fight off that, like to continue to keep going? And same for you, Colette. Like people make comments all the time. Like how do you defeat that?
I mean, I'll go quick, but like, you know, I've been doing this for so long, since like 2008. I mean, in the early days of YouTube, comments were brutal. Like, if you go back and look some of that, so I've just got tough skin because I've been doing it for so long, but you gotta leverage those comments. I mean, it's the only industry, I shouldn't say it's the only industry, but it's like, it's a form of media where you get instantaneous feedback. You'd be crazy not to listen to it. Imagine if people writing these TV shows would know what people liked or what characters people like, so they can include them more in the next episode. They don't get that luxury, but we do.
Yeah.
So if you can listen and you can be in tune with your audience, it's such a powerful tool.
Did it ever hurt your feelings like at one point?
I wouldn't say hurt my feelings. I've always loved, like, not PR, but like I love the strategy behind like damage control and when there's drama and stuff like that. I shouldn't say I used to get into like fights online. Like whenever there was drama online, I always won. You know, when there was like drama in a forum or a post, like I would, even when I was wrong, I'd still win.
Or are you trying to stick up for people?
Oh yeah. Well, that's usually
sticking up.
That's what would get me in trouble, is someone would be talking crap about a friend or someone that I knew.
It.
Yeah. I'll just
Sam it.
I just insert myself in the situation.
That's always been my problem. Like growing up, is like I've always had a problem with someone bullying someone else, and then I can't like move myself out of the situation because I don't know. I like to compete. I've been an athlete my whole life, so if you think you big and bad, like, well, show me you're big and bad. That I don't know. It's like a weird thing that I have inside me that it's like I just hate when people try and belittle other people or like put them down. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that perspective.